Google's in hot water on Capitol Hill. We're going to take a deep dive into the Supreme Court case against the tech giant.
Plus, our political analyst Luke Radel sat down with New York 19 Representative Mark Molinaro. See what he had to say about small businesses here in CNY.
And the markets having their worst week since October. We'll take a deep dive and take a look at the drop. Hold on to your wallets because market share starts right now.
Good morning and welcome to Market Shares. I'm Teagan Brown.
And I'm Bradley Hoppenstein. We're going to start things off with our market update. The markets, their worst week of 2023 so far,
yes.
Teagan. Let's take a look at the Dow to get us started. The Dow ending the week, it fell 336 points, about 1%. It ended the week at 32,816. You just see that continuous drop throughout the week, and that's largely coming the CPI report this week. The Fed's preferred measure of inflation, it's up 0.6% on January, but it's up almost 5% from this time last year. More inflation concerns, Fed likely to raise rates again, and you see the Dow just dropping off as the week goes on.
Yeah, and the NASDAQ up next declined once again, just like it did last week, went down by 2%, and inflation data came out this week, which really kind of affected all of the markets. We've seen this data come out. Squash experts hope that inflation was kind of making some progress, but in fact, it's still not getting quite where they need it to be. Those top decliners for NASDAQ were Autodesk and Adobe, which we'll talk about later.
We will. And let's take a look at the S&P to round things out. S&P finished the week at 3,970. It's took about a 3% drop. And again, really comes down to the inflation numbers, some of the tech stocks, inflation, and the Fed likely to raise rates again. But there were some good signs in that CPI report. Spending soared almost 2%, so that's good news for consumers. Wages also ticking back up, but you could see all three markets really dropping on the week. Worst week of 2023 so far, Teagan.
Yeah, and let's go straight to our market movers. I mean, lots of things happening in the market this week having big effects, especially those tech. So I believe we're starting out with Dollar Tree. So let's talk about that first. Oh, well, you know what? We'll start out with Etsy. Why not? Let's start with Etsy. So we've got Etsy, went down 4.68%, and now it was kind of inconsistent throughout the week. You see up, down, took a huge dip on Thursday, but it's actually overall this year done a lot better than people thought it was going to be. They posted a revenue of $807 million, which smashed estimates of only $752 million. So good week for Etsy.
And Adobe down almost 11% to end the week. The Justice Department's getting involved. They're planning to block the company's about $20 billion acquisition of the startup Figma. Figma is collaborative software, and Adobe is attempting to acquire them and use some of their services to boost the Creative Cloud services that Adobe sells. Big on tech collaboration software, but really the Justice Department getting involved. They say, you know, there's some antitrust issues there, and Adobe ending the week with a dip as a result.
Yeah, and finally finishing now with Dollar Tree. It started out the week pretty well, and I mean, don't let this just kind of 5-day outlook fool you about Dollar Tree's overall, how they're doing this year. We've actually seen that stock really take a jump because of people shopping more at Dollar Tree and these dollar stores for groceries. I mean, food prices alone have risen 10% over the past year, so Dollar Tree dropping 0.17% this week, but overall has a lot of promise as we go forward. And now Walmart may soon be winning the e-commerce fight against Amazon. For the past 5 years, the company sacrificed margins to grow its online business and Prime-like competitors. This year could be the turn where that starts to pay off. The retail giant says sales are up over 8% from the time last year. Net income for the company surged 76% to over $6 billion, and Wall Street estimated that increase would only be about 13%.
Yeah, things are looking good for Walmart, and inflation seems to be working in their favor. The company, they're saying higher income consumers made up nearly half of its gain in market share last quarter, but its e-commerce sales, that's where the focus is. E-commerce carried up 17% from a year ago. Meanwhile, Amazon's online sales dropped 2% over the same period. Walmart says price-conscious shoppers moving to its stores from Amazon has helped grow some of its newer Amazon-like lines of business, such as its global advertising business. That grew 30% in revenue. Meanwhile, Walmart Plus, its Amazon Prime competitor, added over 1 million new members in the past year. So things are looking good for its Amazon competitors. More members and more customers for Walmart means a lot of their products and services can turn bigger profits than ever before. And there's no denying crypto sales have stalled, but Coinbase beat expectations this week. Its fourth quarter revenue about $630 million compared to projected numbers closer to $6. But its usage continues to decline. Revenue beat estimates, but it's still on a 75% plunge from a year ago. The bigger issue, though, its user base continues to shrink, and the buzz around crypto and its value are just constantly fading. Coinbase, it's gone through some major rounds of layoffs so far since June 2022. They're trying to save some cash. It cut 20% of its staff last month after an 18% reduction in 2022.
And taking a look at two air travel movers this week, United bouncing up and down with a positive gain to end the week, and Boeing with a drop on Thursday right after markets closed. Boeing halted deliveries of the 787 this week after new concerns from the FAA. That announcement came on Thursday as well. You can see the drop right there, clear as day.
And United, on the other hand, they're looking to bring families together. They're now going to let children under 12 sit next to an adult they're traveling with at no extra cost, which is great news for families.
Oh, yeah.
This, in part, a response to the Biden administration pushing for airlines to cut back on extra overall fees, but specifically those for families. The airline says families traveling with children under 12 will start to see more seat options immediately, and it's updated its seat map software to find adjacent seats when families book flights. But United says the new policy won't apply to its Polaris, First Class, and Economy Plus seats. So how beneficial is that really? The more expensive tickets on a flight probably can't get your kid next to you, but we'll see what happens.
Well, from big market movers to small businesses, our political reporter Luke Radel spoke to a local congressman serving on the House Small Businesses Committee about the challenges they face to make moves of their own. Luke?
Thanks, guys. The past 3 years have been rough on many small business owners. I spoke to one Republican congressman who's looking to help change that.
Small businesses do make up the backbone of our local economy. They're mostly the people who employ our neighbors, support our organizations, and invest in our communities.
That's Republican Congressman Mark Molinaro of New York's 19th Congressional District. We spoke on the phone Friday about his plans to help small businesses in his district and across the country. You are on the House Small Business Committee as well as being the chairman of the House Subcommittee on Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Workforce Development. What do you hope to do in that role?
Yeah, it's a great opportunity. Regulatory reform, ensuring that there is an easier path from idea to implementation for entrepreneurs and innovators, driving down the overall cost of doing business by cutting through red tape and hopefully providing that kind of meaningful relief.
What are some of the specific policies and reforms that you want to propose to help workforce development and our small businesses?
Well, focus on that pipeline to employment, the concept of making sure educational outcomes meet economic needs. And so encouraging public schools, K-12, to offer those kind of vocational, hands-on educational opportunities.
Another hurdle for the workforce, the lack of affordable and reliable childcare.
This is an area where we can lean on big employers like the new ones coming to our region, Micron and others. Partner with county and local governments who are responsible for some social service, and use those federal resources to expand daycare opportunities. Biggest obstacle for families that want to enter the workforce is accessing quality and reliable and affordable daycare.
Another political leader seeking to address the childcare problem is President Biden. In 2021, he spoke about the issue at a daycare center in Hartford, Connecticut.
So the average two-parent family with two young kids spends 26% of their income on child care every year. My Build Back Better plan is going to change that. It's going to cut the cost of child care for most Connecticut families literally in half. No middle-class family will pay more than 7% of their income on child care. None, period.
Do you believe that's a role of the federal government to provide that daycare service, or should it be something that the federal government is encouraging private businesses to be investing in?
Well, it's a couple. It's a couple. So I don't think the federal government should be opening up daycare centers. Beyond that, if the federal government and the state government and county governments are providing tax benefits to new employers, that needs to come with some social commitment.
And guys, that Build Back Better plan you saw the president talking about ultimately failed, but Congressman Molinaro says there are renewed efforts to expand child care nationwide.
Our political analyst, Luke Radel, thank you. Arguments are underway in the U.S. Supreme Court case Gonzalez v. Google, which could determine the fate of big tech's regulation of online content. Market Shares' Dominic Chiappone is in studio to break down what the arguments are in both sides of the case. Dominic, what themes have emerged from the first few days of oral arguments for this?
Teagan and Bradley, the U.S. as a whole is approaching uncharted waters in terms of content and internet regulation. In a sense, the Supreme Court finds itself stuck between a rock and a hard legal place. Let's start with the facts of the case. The lawsuit was brought up by the family of Naheem Gonzalez, a 23-year-old American woman killed in a 2015 ISIS attack in Pakistan. Now, the family alleges that Google, which owns YouTube, aided ISIS recruitment by allowing the organization to post videos on YouTube that incited violence and recommended said videos through its algorithms. Now, the Supreme Court will determine whether big tech should be found liable under a 1996 law in Section 230C of the Communications Decency Act, which promotes a free market style of the internet that doesn't hold tech giants accountable. The section in question can be seen on your screen right now under Section C, or the Good Samaritan blocking and screening of offensive materials section. It reads, quote, "No provider or user of an interactive computer service shall be treated as the publisher or the speaker of any information provided by another information content provider." Now, in other words, this is a legal nightmare for all parties involved. If the Supreme Court ruled in favor of the family, pretty much anyone can sue on the basis of feeling impacted or damaged by content online. But if big tech were to win, it shows the dangers of letting companies like Facebook, Twitter, and Google basically have free reign in what they can do. And that's exactly what played out during the oral arguments. Here's how Justice Brett Kavanaugh described what the implications of the ruling of this case would be.
And of the 8 justices...
What about the implications then? Go to that. The implications for the economy, that you have a lot of amicus briefs that we have to take seriously that say this is going to cause a lot of economic dislocation in the country.
So obviously, Teagan and Bradley, pending litigation here, but this is also not the only Supreme Court case. There's another one involving Twitter that's also has oral arguments underway. So you can see the challenge here of trying to regulate big tech while at the same time trying to protect them at the same time, given the liability that's at play here.
And so, Dom, obviously with the rise of social media and an online presence and advertising and all of this, we've seen a lot of similar cases over the years. But right now, what are the challenges that they're facing specifically with this one?
The biggest one is easily framing. They're basing the constitutionality of if Google is liable or not on a law from 1996. This is over 10 years before the iPhone was created. So it's like, how do you regulate big tech? Because technically, it is not Google or Twitter who is actually posting this content. It is individual creators that are across the board. So that's the challenge, basically, who is at fault here? Because there is somebody who's clearly at fault, and that's a determination for the Supreme Court. But the liability itself and basically what's the constitutionality of it, at the end of the day, those are kind of the 2 biggest challenges that the Supreme Court's going to have to litigate here.
Dominic Chiappone, thank you so much. And coming up on Market Shares, President Biden is set to announce a plan that looks to save homeowners money. We'll have more when we come back.
Here's to the straggly ones, the first ones. Hey, I look good with this ones. The black, brown, red, and gray ones. The itchy ones. The ones grown by Dad. The ones grown for Dad. The I nearly didn't do it this year ones. And the absolutely filthy ones. They all raise awareness, raise funds, start conversations, and save lives. Because whatever you grow will save a bro. Learn more at Movember.com.
Welcome back to Market Shares. As the U.S. grasps with rising home costs, the Biden-Harris administration announced a new plan to bring relief to mortgage payments. CitrusTV reporter Adam Campos is here to tell us who the new plan will help and how much someone can save on their loan. Adam?
Hey, Bradley and Teagan. The new plan announced by the White House is set to take effect on March 20th. And once enacted, the relief is expected to help out around 858,000 homeowners and home buyers in 2023. It's expected to save them on average around $800 per year. Here, specifically, this new plan will help people who are buying a home using what's called an FHA loan. It's a loan backed by the Federal Housing Administration. People that qualify or decide to go with FHA loans are usually first-time home buyers who are looking for a little more flexibility with the lower down payment, or people who have a lower credit score. Now, this plan is going to be crucial for FHA borrowers since this is going to lower what is known as the mortgage insurance, aka MI. The basis points for MI is set to drop from 0.85% to 0.55%. The basis points determine how much that extra monthly premium is going to be. And by dropping the basis points by 30, this is where you'll see that average savings of around $800 a year come in. Now, this is such a crucial move because not only can this determine the price range you qualify for, this determines whether or not someone in general is going to get approved for a loan or not. To put it into perspective, let's compare the scenario of someone buying with an FHA loan and someone who's buying with a conventional loan by talking about debt-to-income ratio. Debt-to-income ratio, in simple terms, is the amount of debts you have compared to what you're bringing home. The limit for your debt-to-income ratio is 50% for both types of loans. So the amount of debts you have cannot exceed 50% of your income. The difference between having an FHA loan and a conventional loan is that mortgage insurance premium. Conventional loans don't have that added mortgage insurance, which means that borrowers have more flexibility with their debt-to-income ratio. For FHA loans, however, that MI is added on top of all of the regular monthly payments that go into paying your mortgage. And typically when you're looking to qualify for an FHA loan, your debt-to-income ratio limit drops to 43% to consider what your mortgage insurance is going to be. With the lowered monthly insurance, that's going to allow more prospective borrowers to qualify and a better opportunity to explore more homes. So in the coming years, we should see that average FHA price amount rise from the $270,000 and currently sits at to a closer average of the home values in the U.S. Teagan, Bradley.
Adam, thank you. A lot to think about, especially when you factor in interest rates as well. Experts believe the hard seltzer industry, which was valued at $10 billion in 2021, can grow by double digits in the coming years. The U.S. market has already seen Pepsi and Coca-Cola release alcoholic products, including a spiked version of Monster energy drinks called the Beast Unleashed.
Wow. Well, with such products being rolled out, some are expressing concern over the appeal these different seltzers, spiked energy drinks, and other similar products can have with young people. Experts say beer sales have declined in recent years due to people paying more attention to calories and carbs. And the same experts say since most of the newly rolled out products are sugar-free and caffeine-free, they're more likely to cause addiction for that younger generation, and that's who they're trying to get these drinks to appeal to.
They're trying to get that younger generation, and that younger generation also surprisingly into sports betting lately. Apparently, 2022 saw record revenue from commercial sports betting. Sports leagues and states have embraced the once marginalized activity as a moneymaker. So, Peter, Elliott, what can you tell us? Break down what's changed.
Yeah, Bradley and Teagan, a lot has changed in just a couple of years. What was once a marginalized activity, what was once illegal, is now impossible to avoid as companies have been cashing in on record sports betting revenue, which hit an all-time high of $7.5 billion last year. This year's Super Bowl, which was played for the first time in a state where sports betting is legal, saw a record number of bets being placed. But this was all once illegal. Those looking to get skin in the game once had to look to illegal economies on the underground economy, placing bets with bookies and offshore accounts. Now that's not the case after a 26-year-old law that made sports betting illegal in most states was overturned in 2018 by the Supreme Court. It's unleashed a floodgate of states across the country legalizing sports betting, which is now taken over if you watch any sports on TV. And now you see a lot of commercials just like this.
You want to make every game interesting? Step 1, open the BetMGM Sportsbook. Step 2, put some skin in the game. And step 3, showtime.
DraftKings. Now I know it's the Super Bowl and all, but everyone gets a free bet?
Stop guessing the helmet catch.
Is it the Caesars Sportsbook app with Caesars Rewards, where the more you play, the more stuff you earn, and they have fast payouts because Caesar is the man? Yes!
Every moment in life is a bet. But when it comes to the NFL, bet on America's #1 sportsbook, FanDuel, and make every moment more.
And Peter now joining us at the desk. So gambling is now illegal in a handful of states, but it seems like there's this eagerness to embrace it now.
Yeah. It's because of the massive tax revenue. New York State here saw a record number of revenue this year, close to $1 billion in terms of revenue, which can be used for education, youth sports programs, and funny enough, gambling intervention. So a lot of states are seeing the success that New York State has had with this and said, we probably want all that money coming into our coffers as well. Another reason why is that cultural norms have eased. It's not seen as this danger that it once was. So a lot of states and companies are realizing, hey, this is something that the public's okay with now. We can legalize it.
Yeah, it's been really interesting seeing ever since the legalization here in New York, just the commercials come out like you showed us and the way people talk about it. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of how it grows in the next few years. But coming up on Market Shares, we'll take a closer look at the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation target. Stay with us.
Welcome to an excellent episode of Live from Studio B.
Welcome back to Market Shares. When you talk about inflation, you always hear you want to be around that 2% number. The 2% inflation target is used around the world to make sure the economy grows at a sustained rate. But how exactly do economies worldwide implement this policy? Market Shares analyst Jacob Goldberg is here to answer that question. So, Jake.
Yeah, Bradley, before I talk about how they implement it, let's talk about how many people around the world use it. Here's Lawrence Ball, a professor of economics at Johns Hopkins. He said you would think that it's in the Bible, the 2% inflation rate, because of how common it is. It's just a known rule across the world. Here are the countries that use it. New Zealand's the one who started it back in the 1990s, but some of the world's biggest economies, Canada, UK, Australia, go all the way down, and of course the United States using this. So why 2%? That's the question I had. Why not 1%? Why not 3%? Well, 2% is good because you don't want it to be too high, or else the prices of goods will cost too much. We've seen that with gas. We've seen that with eggs so far in 2023. But you don't want it to be too low, because then people will come to expect low inflation, and therefore when you get into a tough economy situation like the COVID-19 pandemic, you can't rebound as fast. So where is inflation now for the United States? We obviously know about the 2% target. Are we there? No, we're way above it right now. 6.4% in 2023, but all the way back in 2013, we were hovering just around that 2%. So how do we get that 2%? Well, we have to raise interest rates to lower inflation. We've talked about interest rates before on Market Shares. This is what Jerome Powell has been doing the previous year. No decreases in interest rates, but instead we're increasing that basically every month throughout the past year, and now we're sitting at around 4.5% interest rates. That's going to lower inflation over time. There's still more to go, but eventually the United States will try and get back to that 2%. Guys, back to you.
Jacob Goldberg, thank you. And a new decision from the U.S. Supreme Court says the bankruptcy code cannot protect you from paying off a debt, even if that debt was due to a partner's fraud and not your own. In the unanimous decision, the court ruled that Kate Barfenwerfer has to pay a $200,000 debt that came from her husband's misrepresentation to a client. Justice Amy Coney Barrett said, quote, "Innocent people are sometimes held liable for fraud they did not personally commit. The bankruptcy code bars discharge of that debt."
And after the break, our stock analyst Sean Dempsey is back. He's going to break down his top picks for the week.
Hi, my name is Sadie Miller.
My name is Luke Brady. I go by St. Luke.
So this one I started with this guitar lick.
Here you go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Market Shares. I'm Teagan Brown, joined alongside Bradley Hoppenstein. At the wall, we're going to welcome our stock analyst, Sean Dempsey. Sean, what's going on in the market this past week? It's crazy.
Good morning, Teagan. The stock market, as we know, is unpredictable. One week it can be in the green, and the next it can be in the red with no updates surrounding the economy. However, in the past few days, we have seen a lot of negative sentiment surrounding the market after a massive rally that took place just a couple of weeks ago. Companies in 3 different sectors that have been making headlines are NVIDIA, Home Depot, and Penn Entertainment. We'll start with NVIDIA, the microchip manufacturer. The company's shares skyrocketed 14% after they reported an earnings beat on the top and bottom lines. A highlight from the earnings report was that NVIDIA impressed investors with its AI growth. After the earnings call, Rosenblatt Securities said that NVIDIA's AI play is accelerating in a way that will have disruptive implications in the industry. AI chips rose 11% on an annual basis to $3.62 billion. It now appears that NVIDIA is starting to become a stock hard not to own after it showed all of us why it is still the top pick in its sector. The positive news surrounding the company has caused the yearly price target to rise to around $300 per share. NVIDIA has increasingly been seen as investors as one of the top chip stocks in the industry. All right, we'll look over at NVIDIA's stock chart here. The one-year chart, it's been not doing so hot, but has rallied from its $112 per share in October. This is mostly due to the tech sector performing much, much better over the last couple of months. Now let's switch gears to the entertainment sector. A stock that has been the definition of beaten down is Penn Entertainment. The stock is down 78% from its all-time high of $130 in March of 2021. The company focuses on sports betting and sports entertainment. So what's the problem for Penn? Well, inflation causes consumers to be more mindful of what they are spending their money on, and gambling with Penn doesn't seem to be a top priority. This past week, Penn Entertainment made a business deal to hopefully change the course of the company. Penn purchased Barstool Sports for $388 million. Penn previously owned 36% of the company, but decided it was time to take complete control of Barstool. And finally, moving over to the consumer discretionary sector, where everyone's favorite home improvement store lies, Home Depot. The company missed earnings for the first time since 2019. This was due to a slowdown in the home improvement category of the economy. And to make matters worse, Home Depot expects its sales growth to be flat in 2023. A dip in the housing market is affecting Home Depot because consumers aren't buying or fixing up homes at the rate they were last year. That's all I got, guys.
You know what's crazy is you look at some of these tech stocks, eBay,
Yeah.
They're reporting earnings are back to where they were before the pandemic, but now that's not even enough. They're losing market share just for getting back where they were.
And I mean, seeing some of them affected, like the chip one, NVIDIA, you know, comparing it to Micron here in Syracuse and just everything that's happening with that, super interesting to see. But that is all the time we have for right now on Market Shares. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Teagan Brown.
I'm Bradley Hoppenstein. Have a great week. We'll see you next Sunday.